When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at energysavers.gov.
In Fairfield County, something new comes across my desk every day. Crimes are committed, cases are solved, and a community is made safe by the hardworking employees of the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office.
Welcome to This Week with Sheriff Dave Phelan, a weekly program here on LSN Television. We're also carried by a number of radio affiliates here in Lancaster. Do appreciate you, the viewers and listeners that join us each and every week. The students here at Fairfield Christian Academy that actually tape and put this program together. Our executive producer, Kelly Roberts, behind the scene, lining the guests up, getting the questions together, does a terrific job. Back by popular demand, Sergeant Jared Collins. Good to see you, Sarge.
Hey, thanks for having me back, Sheriff.
And last week had a great program. We talked a lot about some of the narcotics issues here in the county and lots of stuff going on. And it's good to have you back.
Hey, I love coming in. It's great.
And this week I thought we would talk a little bit about some of the training and some of the training that's mandated, and you're in charge of that.
Absolutely. I love training.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit about some of the training that, first of all, is mandated every year. And I know firearms is one of those areas, right?
Right, it is. Right now, you know, the state of Ohio has become a little bit more proactive with training in the last couple of years. There's different versions out there, but they're going to mandate for next year in between 11 and 16 hours that are going to be required training for all police officers in the state of Ohio.
Okay.
You know, we want to produce the best officers that we can. Here at the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office, we've always done that. Our training standards have always been well above and beyond what the state requires. But we've managed to add several things into our curriculum and come up with different training programs that are really kind of giving our officers the edge in the industry right now.
And a lot of this training is not just you're in the classroom, you're taking notes, it's really you're simulating actual events that happen, right?
We are all about hands-on. I mean, there are some things that have to be classroom-based, but
right.
You know, our people work in the real world. You know, the whole term death by PowerPoint is a real thing that's out there, and they learn more, and retain better if you've got them in the field actually running through scenarios and things of that nature.
I know a few years ago, and I thought it was very impactful, you were using the old Big Bear out on Main Street, and you were doing like it was a simulated, the officer was dispatched there, the deputy was dispatched there on a burglary call, and then they had you know, obviously not real weapons, but they had simulated firearms, and then they had people inside kind of were the burglars.
That's right. That was our building search and room clearing training that we did, and it was great. The following year we did a traffic stop class that was based on the same thing. And we're constantly in development. I've got a great staff of 5 or 6 law enforcement trainers that have different specialties within the office. And we meet generally 4 or 5 times a year and assign curriculum development and class development. And you know, this year we've had just a bunch of great stuff. We really have up to this point. We've run a drug ID and methamphetamine laboratory class. That was a hit. We had just great reviews on it. We ran a self-aid buddy aid for trauma. We had our SWAT medics come in and teach deputies how to self-treat gunshot wounds and things of that nature. It was a great class. We've had pepper spray OC basic classes, asp baton basic classes, and you know, one of the really more intense classes that we ran a compromised shooting position class.
And for our viewers, and this, what do you mean by compromised?
Basically, this
position?
one was primarily involving shooting from a vehicle.
Okay.
So we had an old cruiser that we took the front and back windshields out of, and had officers responding to ambush threat and actually shooting out the front window, side windows, and things, throughout what you would encounter in that type of an assault on a vehicle.
And today, probably like none other, we really have, and in fact, within the last week, we've really gotten a lot of information on to kind of be on high alert, because there are rumors of ambushes that are being planned, those kind of things. And so it's very concerning today for law enforcement, not only here in our county, but across the country.
Absolutely. It is a scary time to be in the job, and I think that's why the commitment to training that you've shown is even more important. We want to prepare our officers for any eventuality. We want them all to go home.
Now, you mentioned earlier that as part of the SWAT team, you have medics that are involved. So tell us a little bit some of the thought process, and that hasn't always been the case, has it?
No, it really hasn't. This has been a program that we initially took on a couple local doctors, and they're still involved, but they oversee the program now, where we brought in 3 absolutely dedicated Violet Township firefighter paramedics.
Okay.
These guys have been through, on their own, probably more SWAT training than some of the guys on the team.
Okay.
Just because they are dedicated individuals. They've brought just a new level of professionalism to our county SWAT team that is amazing.
So they stand by in case there's some kind of a shooting, either a suspect or
these guys.
a deputy or
These guys
whatever.
go in with us.
Okay.
We actually are, at least in the state of Ohio. They're doing it in other states, but we pioneered this with our SWAT team by taking the medics in the stack with us into these situations, whether it's a barricade, a hostage, or a warrant service. They're right there with us. It's hard to treat traumatic injury if you're not there.
Okay.
These guys have the same equipment, same gear that we have. The only difference is they're not armed.
Wow. So last week we talked a little bit about your career. You're a canine officer. You worked in the jail. You worked a host of different assignments. Is there any one area, and for a while you were in charge of Canal Winchester, is there any one assignment that really you said, I really enjoyed that, or has it all been kind of like in each one you kind of liked, or is there something special that you liked about each one? Or?
You pull special things out of each and everything you do. That's why it's such a great career, and I've loved it so much, because every position has its challenges. Really does. I think for the 13 years I was in K-9, I loved it. I felt every day like I was doing something good. And SWAT's the same way. I really, talk about career, fulfillment with your career. That's it, because, the positives you see through, whether it be a lost kid you found on a track or a hostage rescue. You see that type of thing every day, and it just,
And as you think back over your 23 years, which is a long time, is there one thing that really had something that really is memorable or impactful to you with all these different situations you've been involved in?
Really to isolate just one would be impossible. I know. Whether it has been a few things that have been pretty heartbreaking that I've been involved in, or a few things like, being directly involved on 2 hostage rescues, where that person is going home alive that night because of, either actions that you planned or were directly involved in. 5 or 6 lost kids that we found over the years with the dogs, or a major violent criminal that you've been able to apprehend and take off the street. You're able to go home every night and really kind of say, wow, I did something today.
Yeah. Now, one other thing, you've been here 23 years, and you have a youthful appearance. So when you first started, did a lot of people come and say, you don't look old enough to be a deputy, or did you get much of that?
I got a ton of that. As a matter of fact, sometimes I still do.
That's not a bad problem to have.
You know, it was great. For the first year I worked here, I worked undercover narcotics, did a lot of school-type things, worked for the Fairfield Beach area, and that was a huge benefit. It really was. It was a good way to start. I don't know if I learned real quick I could never have done a career as an undercover. I really couldn't have. It's you've got a pretty quick burnout there.
Well, and I think, and having been with Columbus and Washington and working some covert operations, then it is a difficult assignment because you're working with the worst sometimes, and you're assuming an identity or someone that you're not. So it can be very difficult. It can be also very dangerous.
Absolutely.
And so it's just one of those things. There's probably a shelf life on any of those assignments.
I had some of maybe the scarier moments when I worked undercover.
Well, and again, back then, 23 years ago, you probably didn't have the training. You probably just started, and then they put you right into that environment.
They sent me to a 3-day class, but back then, undercover was undercover. I would show up at the office at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they wouldn't see me until I came back in at 10 o'clock.
Right.
And I worked solo.
Right.
Scary stuff back then, but it was like a lot of things in law enforcement. It was kind of a different world.
And so just recently, Dennis Lowe has become the new commander of the Major Crimes Unit, and I know he's kind of hit the ground running.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Yeah.
It really has. And he's brought an absolute excitement to the job.
Right.
Really, it's and I think he's really enjoying it so far.
We're just about out of time. Let me ask you just one more question before we go off the air. Been doing this 23 years, and so before that, what were you doing? I mean, you're probably a young
I was
guy.
I was a professional rodeo bull rider. For
Boy,
3
that's
years.
a whole program.
Yes. Yes.
So you were okay. I think
was.
you told me that some time ago. Well, we got a minute. Tell us a little bit about what that.
Well, I started at Ohio State. I rode a little bit at Ohio State, and then I took a job out west running a combine on a harvest crew for an entire summer. And on my rain days, I would go out and find a rodeo and ride bulls. After that first summer, I was able to get some sponsorship, and I did it for a few years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I wish we would have brought that up earlier. That would have been a whole. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. Did you ever get hurt?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my best month I made $20,000 in prize money, and my worst month I was minus $36,000 in hospital bills. So
oh, wow.
Just it's not if you're going to get hurt; it's just when and how bad.
Well, remind me when we see you back here in 6-7 months. We'll talk a little bit about that. Sergeant Jared Collins, our scrap commander and veteran of the Sheriff's Office, does a terrific job. Been a great guest. The clock on the wall says we're out of time until next week, same time, same place. God bless, and we'll see you right here.
In 1929 in Chicago, a gentleman by the name of Marion Wade, a former minor league baseball player, started the company. It was just a moth-proofing company then. In 1952, it expanded to carpet cleaning and pioneered what is now called outsourcing. And the Sidwells wanted a community that had a lot of churches, had a lot of soccer opportunities, their kids love soccer, and a good Parks and Rec department, so they chose Lancaster. And so in 1980, they moved the franchise here in Lancaster to 6th Avenue. But then in 2002, Todd George, current owner, purchased the franchise from them. And in 2004, he bought a building that's on Mulberry Street, and that's where the franchise is located currently. I'm Jay Johnson, General Manager of Service Master Clean by Todd George, where we guarantee if it's not done right the first time, we'll do it again.
Service Master Clean by Todd George, 740-687-1077, 740-687-1077.